Live. Intersections. Khemia Ensemble's sophomore album is out today on Parma's Ravello Records. Over 2 years in the making, the album showcases 5 full ensemble commissions with intersections of acoustic chamber music, electronics, and multi-genre Khemia Ensemble's sophomore album is out today on Parma's Ravello Records. Over 2 years in the making, the album showcases 5 full ensemble commissions. We are going to hear with intersections of commentary on microaggressions in Phil Sink's Bite.
Casual comments, questions, backhanded compliments, and unsolicited advice.
A look at a tumultuous mother-daughter relationship in Stefan Freund's Songs of Persephone.
When I was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
A tender lullaby dedicated to his newborn son, rooted in a family ritual of planting a cottonwood tree in Nick Benavides's Little Cloud. An exploration of memory inspired by Yayoi Kusama's Infinity Rooms in Dave Biedenbender's In a Field of Stars. And an assertion of identity through Bollywood melodies and American pop sensibilities in Nina Shaker's Don't Beat a Word.
Barely.
All right, welcome everyone to Khemia's Intersections album release party. My name is Jacob Gottlieb. I'm with the Louisville Orchestra and I serve on Khemia's board of directors. We are thrilled to have the band and the composers of the music that you just heard here with us today, along with their collaborators. So before we get any further, let me just go ahead and introduce folks. Let's start with the band first. We've got Kahng, Shane Jones, Amy Petrongelli, Annie Jeng, Chelsea Jones, Eli Lara, and Mary Matthews, and Thiago Ancelmo. This is the Khemia Ensemble, who are going to be presenting this wonderful music for you all. And let me go ahead and introduce the composers who are here with us today. We've got David Biedenbender, Nicholas Benavides, Nina Shaker, Philip Sink, and Stefan Freund. And I'm so thrilled to be here because some of these folks here are some of my favorite people on the face of this earth, some of my oldest friends. And I got some new folks here that I haven't met yet, but whose music I've heard, and I can't wait to hear and talk to a little bit more. We're gonna have some fun tonight, sharing excerpts from the album as chosen by the ensemble, and we're gonna learn a little bit behind the scenes about the project and the recording process. So before we get any further into the album, Amy, can you tell us briefly about Khemia's origin story and how the group kind of identified the sort of repertoire to record for this album?
Absolutely. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. So Khemia actually was founded in 2015 as graduate students at the University of Michigan. And our evolution over the past 7 years since that moment has been to kind of find our identity in contemporary classical music and how we can use the ensemble for the vehicle of most good. Now we live in 6 different states, so time zones are always fun, and we're very project driven. So we get together about 3 to 4 times a year for residencies in higher academic institutions, for concerts, and this album was one of our biggest projects in the past few years. And we're very intentional with the way that we choose our collaborators. And for the Intersections album, we know we wanted to have an album of full ensemble commissions. That's something that we've never been able to do before. And it's been difficult for us to find repertoire that fits the ensemble, or what you would call a Piero plus ensemble. We have voice and our different instrumentation plus 2 percussion. And it can be hard to find pieces that are not too long to fit within the context of a given show. And so for this album, we identified some of our favorite people and some people that we've been wanting to work with for a long time. We had relationships with Stefan and Phil stemming from one of our founding members, Carolina Heredia at the University of Missouri. And Dave and I actually went to undergrad together, and Nina and Nick have been on our wish list for a long time as past colleagues at the University of Michigan with Nina, and both at the 8th Blackbird Creative Lab in Avaloq. So we're just absolutely thrilled with the music that we've been gifted by these fantastic composers, and we're so excited to be able to finally share it.
Thanks so much, Amy. So we are going to kind of go track by track, or at least kind of composer by composer as we go through the album. And I'm going to talk to each composer, and we're going to play a little bit of a preview of their piece from the record. So Phil, let's start with you. The first track on the album is called Bite by Philip Sink. And I am honored to have gotten to hear the premiere of this piece, along with several of the pieces on this album, actually, at the Mizzou International Composers Festival, which we hosted at the University of Missouri. So Phil, your iteration of the work was instrumental only, but then you added the text. Can you tell us a little bit about the narrative that inspired this piece and how you integrated the voice into the final version that we hear on the album?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the first iteration of the piece involved their residency at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And at the time, I was really inspired by my partner because we wanted to live and work in the same place, but we didn't really quite mean actually live and work in the same place, like during the COVID pandemic. So I worked in the kitchen or the dining room table, doing my lectures, and he was doing his HR thing in the back bedroom. So I would always hear his lectures or his trainings on microaggressions. So I thought that was kind of like a love note to him. And I structure the piece around, essentially what you might do in a training session, where you kind of give an overview and then kind of give bullet point examples. So I actually wrote down a bunch of microaggressions that he gave and also that I received in my lifetime, and extracted the rhythm from it. So a lot of the hard-hitting rhythms came from the words that I was imagining. And then after I constructed the form of the piece, is essentially music first, but then I was able to weave in some really nice lines and use the original narrative that I was thinking of in the first place to fill in the rest. So that was essentially the process. It's very unusual for me to do music first, text second, but I really had a lot of fun imagining what the sound world was first before overlaying the overlying text.
So Phil, as someone who knows your music pretty well and who has gotten to know you personally very well, I was really thrilled when I first heard this piece about how deftly it integrates your very unique sense of humor and sense of irony. And I hope that the excerpt that we're about to hear of this piece, I'm sure that'll convey that very, very clearly. So before we listen to it though, one thing I'm gonna kind of do during these little sessions is, obviously I've got questions for the composers of the piece, but then I'm gonna go back and ask the members of the band questions that are related to the piece that we're about to hear. So question for the band now, which microaggressions from the text of Philip Sink's Bite do you relate to the most? And I'm just gonna have one of you all jump right in. If it doesn't work, I'll do the teacher thing and I'll call on you.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, yeah, just the idea of the instrumentation happening first and then the words. And I do got to say, the first time that we performed it, or even rehearsed it, I guess, with the words, I was pretty triggered actually by the microaggressions in the piece. But I think for me, definitely the one that was, "Where are you from?" No, where are you really from? Because that is definitely a phrase that I've heard many times throughout my life. So that one for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. Anybody else?
I'll jump in with one for me, and that is, you should smile more. I can't tell you how many times I'm moving percussion gear or just living my life being neutral, and someone tells me that I should be smiling.
They've clearly never moved percussion gear. Anybody else? All right, well, Thiago, could you please introduce this excerpt?
Yeah, so let's hear Bite by Philip Sink.
Now imagine resigning to the inevitable of being seen, yet not seen, transparent, invisible. Let's look at several more examples. You look so. You look so pretty. You look so pretty when you smile. You don't sound like a gay person. You should smile more. Do you work here? You should eat that. Do you have kids? Why don't you have a girlfriend? You haven't found the right woman yet. Smile more. You should eat that. Have you tried the keto diet? You speak English so very well.
All right, that was an excerpt of Bite by Philip Sink. That's the first track on the album. That kicks us off. And so moving down, the next track is a 3-movement work by Stefan Freund called Songs of Persephone. And Stefan, you wrote this piece based on 3 poems that were written by your daughter, Karina, in 2019 when she was 11 years old. Can you talk to us a bit about that experience and how her relationship with these words that she wrote has changed since then?
Yeah, so she actually had about 20 poems that were about Persephone and Demeter's relationship. And I selected the first couple. And after that, I was looking for something to kind of wrap up the cycle. I'd already written about 12 minutes of music, and I asked her to write a third one, and she just went off and did it. And 10, 15 minutes later, she was back, and it seemed to wrap up the song cycle perfectly. And I've been thinking a lot about how she's changed and how her perception of that work has changed over the past 4 years now. And just like anyone who's in that age, adolescence, changing a lot and feeling differently about the work that you've done. And she really isn't writing much poetry anymore. She's finding other creative outlets for her. So she writes a lot of songs, for example, and she does a lot of artwork. Lately, she and my wife have gotten into felting a lot, so crafts too. So it's been interesting to see how she's changed the way that she expresses herself. She's always been, even since she was a little girl, singing, dancing, always been very interested in performing and expressing herself. And that's really changed a lot, especially in the past couple of years.
So I remember a notable moment during the premiere of this piece when she was there and she got to hear her words set to music for the first time. Looking back to that experience, did that make her feel closer to the words that she wrote those years ago? Or did that kind of change her relationship to the words she wrote so long ago after hearing it set to the music that you wrote?
It's an interesting question. I always feel when I hear music and I see it dance, like, why was that the choreography? And of course, we're on this side as composers where we're setting the poet's words to music that they probably never imagined that it would sound that way. So I think it actually creates more distance because it's so surprising and shocking to hear it presented in a completely different way than you would have imagined it initially.
Yeah. All right. So now my question for the band, ensemble question number 2. I want to hear, what is your favorite moment in this piece from the mother-daughter narrative? Who wants to jump in? Amy, you got something?
I was just about to unmute. You could see it in my face. I was going to say, There are so many moments. I think what was so fascinating was talking with Stefan and hearing how some of the instruments are actually assigned roles in the family. And you can hear that from the very beginning with the beautiful violin solo that Erdine plays, and just the personification of different people in the instrumentation. But one of my favorite moments to sing is there's a line when I was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and the intervals that I have to sing actually mirror the text there. And so that's actually, I know that has nothing to do with the relationship, but just the relationship of the music and the text, and the way that Stefan chose to set it was just so much fun to get to wrap my instrument around and really bring the intent to it. So
wonderful. So Mary, can you please introduce the excerpt of Stefan's work that we are about to hear?
Yes, so we will be hearing an excerpt from the first movement of Songs of Persephone. The first movement is titled Earth, and this is from the end of the movement when she is getting progressively angrier with her mother.
But the reason why I go down there is to get away from her insults, from her tantrums, from her complaining, from her insults, from her tantrums, from her complaining, from her insults, her tantrums, complaining, her insults, tantrums, complaining, 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 complaining.
All right, that was an excerpt from Stefan Freund's Songs of Persephone. The next track on the album is called Little Cloud by Nick Benavides. And Nick, I know that at the time that you were writing this piece, or just before when Khemia first approached you, you were expecting your first child. Can you talk about how welcoming Lalo into the world informed the composition and the sound world that you made and the artistic decisions that went into the piece?
Sure, and I should clarify, first and only child right now. I feel like that implies that more children are coming. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. I feel like Khemia caught me at probably the most important point in my life, unbeknownst to them and unbeknownst to me really too, which is such a trope to say about parenthood. But they called me and they wanted to commission me. And I basically said, hey, I would love to. Unfortunately, all I can think about right now is this kid on the way. I literally cannot think about anything else. My brain is full with it. If you want me to write a piece, I want to write about him because I just need to figure this out. And they were super great. I thought they were going to be like, well, it's not what we want, but actually you guys were just amazing about it. You're like, yeah, let's do that. Write a lullaby for your kids. Sure, we'll sing it, we'll play it. And I was so grateful for that because it really was like a journal entry for me in my life. I really had to figure it out. Parenthood is very scary, and I have to say it's scary before the kid is born, and it's just hard after they're born. So for other parents, they probably understand that, but like the fear and the anxiety of like what it's going to be like. So this piece was written partially before he was born, and then it was really, I think, finalized after. And it was finalized after. And I have to say, like, this is just unlike anything I've ever written before. I gave myself some restrictions, which being a composer is very necessary for me, at least. I decided that I wanted to write something that my in-laws and my parents and my family could all sing at the surface. That was just very straightforward, like from the songbook almost. But at the same time, this version I was doing, I wanted to be, I wanted to express all of the deeper sort of underneath emotions that I was feeling, like the worry, the wanting to put him to sleep, the wanting him to connect him to my home, to my upbringing, to wondering what it would be like, you know, all these flashbacks of like, oh, I was a kid once and I was parented. Oh my God, my parents went through this, you know, like when I went to bed, they were just doing dishes all night and working and thinking about how I was going to be connected to the world. And I was just playing all day. And so that was the inspiration of this piece. I recorded sounds on cottonwood trees where I'm from in New Mexico. I recorded birds, I recorded crickets outside of my old bedroom window. We planted a cottonwood tree that I feel like I should screen share. I'm not going to, but like it's like 8 feet tall now. It's grown so fast, it's huge. And Lalo saw it just a few weeks ago for Thanksgiving. And it's very healthy and doing well. And it's just really, it was a pleasure to write. I can't say how much it means to me, more than anything I've written in the past few years, to have written this and to have watched it come to life and to have sung it nightly to my kid as well. And I should say one other final thing, I know I'm talking too long, but about a month ago, it was really special. I sing it to him all the time, and he usually just ignores me or does whatever he's going to do because, you know, he's a kid. And he was really sick like a month ago, like really, really sick. And I was taking care of him, and my wife was working away for the week. So it was just me and him for the week. And I was singing to him, and lately he hasn't wanted to be held anymore. He wants to just go into his crib and just sleep. And he really wanted to cuddle with me and sleep. And I was singing, and in his like sick, sad voice, he started singing along. I had no idea he had heard it so well. And I will send it to the ensemble. This is not for public consumption. I'll send it to you all. I recorded a minute of it. I just like turned my phone on. He was like totally singing along and saying the words with me. And it was like the most beautiful moment of my entire life. So thank you for making that happen, all of you. This piece means so much to me.
All right, thanks so much, Nick. And now, question for the band. How many of the animal sounds that Nick's included in this piece can you name?
Crickets.
Crickets.
The bird sounds.
Is it seagulls that Ellie does?
No, there's no seagulls in New Mexico. They're in Utah, though. Seagulls are in Utah.
I know, that's true. What is the sound at the beginning in the intro, Ellie? Is that a bird or an insect?
I think I'm doing crickets. It's like grandfather crickets, though, because it's like, you know, on the cello instead of the violin.
There you go.
You're the ancestor cricket.
Yes.
All right, nice. Well, Ellie, can you introduce this excerpt of Nick Benavides' piece?
Sure. So this is from the latter part of the last couple stanzas or so of this wonderful little lullaby by Nicholas Benavides. Enjoy.
Each cottonwood was once a little dream. Each cottonwood was once a little dream.
All right, that was an excerpt from Nick Benavides's Little Cloud. And up next on the album is Dave Biedenbender's 7-movement piece In a Field of Stars with text by poet Robert Fanning, who is here with us tonight. Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for joining. I don't know if Robert's here, but so Khemia will be performing this piece in January at the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, which is pretty exciting because the piece is inspired partially by Infinity Rooms by artist Yayoi Kusama, which is on permanent installation at the Crystal Bridges Museum. Dave and Robert, would you mind talking a little bit about the convergence of the multiple influences that you've identified in this work, including the Infinity Rooms, the music of Radiohead, the exploration of memory?
If it's okay, I might give a quick diversion about how Robert and I started working together. We were paired for a project, I guess 7 years ago now. It's been a while. And I was asked to write a duo with a poet, and they just assigned me Robert. And I had never read his work before, and I read it, and my life has been different ever since. And we've become good friends. And so it was at the beginning of the pandemic. We sort of had this Zoom session. We sort of brainstorming. I was like, I don't really feel like writing anything right now. But you know, what could we kind of dream up? And we were sort of riffing on some things and never really went anywhere. But then you were rather productive. That's my memory, at least. And you were sending me these poems, and there were so many beautiful ones. I have a backlog of things I want to set now, but this one stuck out to me, and it's called Infinity Room. And there's a dedication at the top to Yayoi Kusama and Dreamers They Never Learn, a quote from Tom York. And I said, what's this about? And I'll let you tell, Robert, for you, kind of where that comes from.
Well, this was a funky poem. I you know, to me, it's sort of, well, it is inspired by Yayoi Kusama's Infinity Rooms, which, if you haven't seen one yet, are just phenomenal. These confined spaces that sort of become limitless because of the mirrored walls. So in viewing the art and in viewing these pieces, you're actually inside of it. You walk into a room, and there you are, seeing a multiplicity of seemingly endless forms and endless versions of yourself. So I had Infinity Rooms in my head, and I was looking at them online. And but to me, it's about self-identity and temporality and impermanence. You know, we are confined and limitless in who we are and who we can be. There's just this negation, beautiful negation and dichotomy, even within the words infinity room, right? How can something be infinity and, of course, confined to a space? So I was thinking about that, and then I started watching Paul Thomas Anderson's video of the Radiohead song Daydreaming, because I knew that it involved a lot of rooms. And so I was just exploring this idea of entering in and out of spaces. But to me, the piece really is about identity. And so I started writing this poem that I sort of call this form constellations. The stanzas are spread out around the page, which allows the reader, kind of like being inside of an installation, the opportunity to look around. So I wanted the poem to have sort of a no beginning, no end kind of feeling. And then when I sent it to Dave, I think it was just, I don't know. I think it just, you can take it from there, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it's the experience that I often have reading your work, which is I read it and then I immediately hear things. And the poem, as you said, the way you can read it, which is sort of, you know, this constellation of phrases, that's the way I chose to set the text. So I picked out little bits and pieces and rearranged it. There are themes and phrases that come back in the poem, and the idea, to me, it was like the only piece I could have written at the time we were in, which was in the middle of the pandemic when time seemed so strange. The room I was in seemed like I was going to be in it for infinity. And you know, there was a lot of, and even just kind of questioning of my own identity and how I got to this point in my life, how we got as a society and a you know, as a global people, how we got to this point with this pandemic. And there was just so many, you know, kind of things that I had time to sit and think about. And this poem, I feel like can be viewed through so many different lenses. And so, I picked 7 of them and tried to kind of capture a little bit of the infinite of the poem.
All right, thank you both. So this question that I'm about to ask, I want to ask both to Robert and then to the band. So Robert, we'll start with you. Dave has incorporated a lot of really fun, unconventional sounds in this piece in his kind of translation and rendering of your words. What is the favorite sound that you have? Do you have a favorite sound that Dave has invented for this piece?
Well, you have to forgive me being a poet. I can't always name the sounds, but I was actually listening to a performance of this. Well, okay, in the first movement, there's this, it's okay. I just want to say there's something about David's music that I love, that it's not linear. I think what we want to happen next never happens. He always diverts us and into new territory. So there's a lot of that. But one of my favorite parts is even in the first movement, there's this, I guess it's a flute. I don't know. It's something that goes like, boo, boo. It like shoots across the space, and it's amazing. But to me, it's like there are sounds that are going up and down, and sounds that are going in a linear fashion. And there's just, it's 3-dimensional. These 7 movements to me, I can't say anything else about it.
That's wonderful. I love that description, 3-dimensional. All right, so now I'm going to ask the band, who's responsible for producing these crazy noises. What are your favorite crazy noises from this piece?
I guess I'll jump in first, because that one I think was me in the first movement, and I get to do a lot of really fun extended techniques throughout this piece. I get to do some beatboxing syllables. There's one moment where I play like 9 jet whistles in a row. And what I really appreciated is that Dave emailed me ahead of time and said, how many? What's the limit? And so I appreciated that he asked.
I think my question was, how many before you pass out, right?
Before you pass out, right. And I was like, well, I guess I grabbed out my flute the moment I saw your email, and I went upstairs and I just started playing them. And when I got dizzy, I was like, all right, let's do one less than that. And that's the number. But yeah, there's just such beautiful colors, and they're all so well done and so specific to each movement, and I loved playing them.
Wonderful.
If Thiago's not going to say it, I'm going to jump in and say that I think it's a consensus across the ensemble that he has a killer multiphonic section in movement 5 that is just like rock out. It's amazing. And I think every time we get to it in the ensemble, we absolutely love that moment.
Should we all unmute and sing it how it sounds to us? I think that might be kind of amazing, but I just don't want to be the only one. Come on, guys, let's unmute. I'll do a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Make Thiago's.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
All right, Dave, version 2 of this piece, you transcribe what they just did and reinsert that into the score.
I'm on it.
All right, well, let's actually hear some of it. Shane, are you with us? Nope, looks like Shane is not with us. So Thiago, can you tell us about the excerpt from In the Fields of Stars that we're about to hear? Oh, Shane, are you there?
Oh, Shane.
Shane?
Hey, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm on the train on my way to town. Yes, I can introduce the movement. So this is probably the big rock out movement of these 7, the heavy metal movement. And it starts out with some pretty sawtooth notes from the strings, and then it builds into some pretty hefty quarter note blocked chords on the piano, and it ends up going into some cool spiral section where Annie is glissing, and then the strings are glissing, and Chelsea's playing big hits on the bass drum, and I'm scraping the vibraphone resonators, and then it concludes with the big multiphonics from Thiago on the clarinet, and it's just Awesome. Yeah.
All right, you just heard an excerpt of David Biedenbetter's In Field of Stars with
Jacob,
text
let me
by-
correct myself. That was movement 2, and I introduced movement 5. I apologize. But movement 2 is pretty awesome also.
All right, thanks, Shane. Yeah, so that was from David Biedenbetter's In a Field of Stars with text by Robert Fanning. And so the last piece on the album is by Nina Shaker, and it's called Don't Beat a Word. And Nina, you described this piece as not being a breakup song. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, that was my angsty program note. Short and sweet. Yeah, no, so I think that so often people come to these like realizations of, I don't know, like self-actualization in their life when they're going through a breakup or, reacting to another person. And I think it's like, why do we have to do that? Why can't we like take these moments for ourselves and really think about who we are and what do we need without actually needing another person to reflect back on. And I just keep thinking of so many breakup songs. Like I just have like Alanis Morissette in my head and like these like angsty songs that are like reacting to another person. But like, we're always like receiving so much input from around the world and our environment and thinking like, what is it that we need and who are we as people? And with this piece, I was really thinking about how so often in different situations, either through whether it's like romantic relationships, friendships, other kinds of dynamics in the world where I would feel like I would have to change who I was in order to be like fit into an environment. And this piece is like really about that. A lot of the text that Amy sings is about like I washed the grit, I bleached the stains, which is really about like me feeling like, as somebody who's brown, feeling like I had to almost like whiten myself, in order to be in an environment, had to kind of change who I was, and feeling like I was too Indian in order to fit in a certain environment. And I think that my piece is kind of representative of that, like me trying to come to this conclusion of me being who I am, regardless of another person. And I think that's kind of what that program note means.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So my question for the band is, this piece features both live instruments and electronic sounds. And I remember from the premiere just how lush the electronic sounds could get and how all enveloping the moments of this piece were, but also how there were moments of like little subtlety where they would kind of poke through occasionally. So members of the band, what is your favorite moment of the electronic sounds in this piece?
I'm going to jump in real quick because my absolute favorite moment is right before things start to pick up, before the biggest moment in the piece, where there's an inhale in the track, but I'm also inhaling too. And so there's just this really beautiful duet moment of just inhales, and it's not a specific sort of set rhythm. They come at different times, and it's just such a cool moment every time we get to it.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Anybody else have a favorite electronic sound from Don't Beat a Word?
I'll jump in. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Actually, for me, it's the beginning. Kind of like what Amy was saying about the duet moment between the inhale of the electronic track and, her inhale. I actually love how there's a moment where there's an electronic track of flute. And I remember when I first rehearsed this, I looked over at Mary and I thought, wait, she's not playing. But then, of course, there's this great partnership that happens. And so I love the relationship that's constant between live and electronics that happen throughout the piece.
Yeah, thanks, Sergine. Anyone else? All right, well, Annie, would you mind introducing this excerpt from Don't Beat a Word?
Of course. And actually, that's perfect that Amy brought up that moment, because that's what you're going to hear right now, is that duet of the inhales and exhales, which is actually one of my favorite parts. And it builds up to the most climactic moment of this piece. And I just have to share this because this was, a big thing, I think, when we were learning this piece, of how much we gravitated towards this moment, which Thiago, who in his previous life would enjoy going to the club, and in the club, in sorry, there's where you're listening to the techno music, and then there'd be the drop, and then in the drop you would have the smoke machines and the fans in the room to go shh. So I can't introduce this piece without saying that, because you have to imagine that as you're listening to the drums that you'll hear ticka 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 ticka, and it kind of ramps up, and that's the drop. That's the drop. That's when the smoke machines go insane. And just this whole piece is so lovely. It goes through this beautiful journey, and I'm delighted to introduce it and for y'all to hear it.
Ghostly drum pounding away, how can I stay when I'm round on a flat earth? I peel it off this dirty shell, rip the threads hair by hair, pause and bear the way you want to see. I wash the gray
All right. That was an excerpt from Nina Shaker's Don't Beat a Word. And so that is the closing track off the album. And so now we're gonna have a fun little moment where it's gonna be time for some trivia. So these questions are addressed both to the band and to the composers, to the collaborators, and I don't know, can the audience participate too? Yeah? All right, let's do it. Trivia time. You all ready? Okay, all right. So number one, first trivia question, who is the youngest composer to write a piece for this album?
Nina, definitely Nina. Wait, can we just jump in?
Yeah, why not?
Because I just feel very strongly about this.
I don't know, Chelsea, is he right?
Oh, Chelsea had to leave. She
Chelsea
had to
step out.
Oh, okay.
I think I will back that up. We'll say yes.
All right, Nina. Nina
I'm
is
the baby
youngest.
of the composer group.
Young and mighty.
All right. So number two, which piece took the longest to record?
Dave's.
Actually, I'm going to take this moment and just say that we have our recording engineer with us today, Eric Dujaneski, who also happens to be my husband. I'm so sorry for him. But which one took the longest?
It was definitely Dave's.
Also, if you factor in that we had to wait to record because I had COVID when we initially did all of the stuff. So, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Takes a while to get that 3D sound, Dave. Okay, so next one. What was the most memorable moment of the recording process?
I got to conduct a couple times, which was like too much power. But I loved it.
I think Chelsea playing bass flute, which I think made it into the opening video we all got to see for a clip there, was super fun.
I think my favorite was when we had to isolate the melodicas. And there's a video of Amy like really intently counting and conducting and then blowing into her melodica. Because we had to get it perfectly correct of our melodica trio. I think that was my favorite.
So Annie, you just talked about drops, and we all love a good drop. So we got a few drops on this album. One by Nina, there's one by Phil. Phil's got a drop, and Dave in movement 7 of his piece has a drop too. Which drop on this album is your all's favorite?
I like them all for such very different reasons. I mean, it's just they're all my favorite when we get to it every single time. Like I think I can say, oh well, I love Nina's, but then we can be doing Phil's piece and I'm like, this is my favorite drop today, or we'll jump to Dave's and I'm like, no, this is my favorite. So they're all amazing.
Anybody else got favorite drops?
I just love that we all did drops.
Yeah, nice. Okay, next one. Which of these commissions was written first?
I think it was Stefan's, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was
So
Stefan.
Stefan's.
Yeah. That was actually we received that one and we kind of based everything else off of that. We thought, well, why can't we just do a whole album of commissions? So thanks, Stefan.
All right, next one. Which of the composers wrote their own text?
I know.
All right, Stefan, you know, come on.
It's the other person who's raising his hand there.
That would be me.
Phil, are you the only one who wrote their own text for this album?
No, Nina did too. And Nick.
Didn't Nick?
Yes.
You
I'll just
already
contribute.
knew.
I'll contribute and say that it's a good thing that I did not and that Robert did. That's everybody's better off that way. So
I normally would not have, but it was my kid, so I was like, I gotta just damn it, I just gotta do it. Can I say that? Are you guys gonna bleep me? You guys got like a 10-second delay, right? Bleep me. Okay. I had to do it. It was harder than writing the piece.
Yeah, I think that's really bold that so many of you wrote your own lyrics for this. Bravo to all of you all. That's really cool. Okay, so the final question. Actually, sorry, two left. Second to last one. Who of the band, or maybe even of the composers, I don't know, who was the most calm throughout the recording process?
Ooh.
I can answer that question because it was definitely Bill Kalinko's.
Eric is over here. Eric just went, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, indeed.
We were in the middle of recording, and I just like could feel people getting tired or like tensions running a little bit, and you just hear this voice because there was like this like little tiny baby monitor from like the recording studio or recording room that Bill and it was just let's just take a break. Let's just do it again. Just do it again.
Nice. Okay, so this last question, I gotta say, this last question is a little passive aggressive, but you know that a band is tight with all its members when they start asking each other passive aggressive questions in public like this. So, all right, which Khemia members need to buy an iPad to quiet their page turns?
Amy.
Come on now.
Until today, it would have been me. But I literally got one in the mail. It arrived today. So now I will have equally quiet page turns, y'all.
Amazing. All right. Okay, so yeah, called out. Okay, so before we wrap up this party, first of all, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the band. I want to thank the composers. I want to thank Robert and the other collaborators who are here with us. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in right now on YouTube. And I want to remind everybody that's watching that you can win some free Khemia swag by entering in our drawing in the YouTube description. So you can just go check that out. You just need to enter your name and your email address. And now I've been talking a lot, so I will turn it over to Ergene for some closing thoughts.
We're so grateful to all the donors who have funded our Intersections album. It was years in the making, and we couldn't have done this without you. Thank you so much for all of those who have supported us along the way. The instructions for how to download and stream the album link will be in the YouTube description link after this live stream is concluded. I think also earlier on we included in the chat, but if you haven't scrolled up or didn't catch it the first time, it'll definitely be in the description box. Khemia has a lot of exciting things on the horizon. We talked about Crystal Bridges earlier. We will actually be visiting Crystal Bridges in January. So it's coming up very soon, where we will also be visiting College of the Ozarks. And we will be doing a retreat sometime in the summer to discuss our new commissions by Bobby Guh and Florence Maunders. We are very excited about that. I of course have to also ask for donations and subscriptions. If you like seeing what we are doing, please make sure that you subscribe to keep up to date to all of the activities that we are doing. If you appreciate what we do, you know how hard it is to sustain this. So if you feel called to donate, please do. It means so much. And as I said earlier, this would not have been possible. This album would not have been possible without your support. So thank you so much. And our last component is the outro video. So thank you so much again, and hope to see all of you guys very soon.
Hush.